Good day, everyone, and a warm welcome to Module 4 of the Business Application Webinar Series. It's great to see all of you. My name is Lizette de Villiers. I'll be the host today, and our presenters are Peter de Villiers, the Head of Research and Development at Shadowmatch, and Suzanne Conradi, the General Manager at Shadowmatch. I'll hand to them shortly. A few administrative arrangements. As always, your microphone is on forced mute to just avoid any disturbances during the course of the presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will allow live questions. I will enable the setting for you to unmute yourself and then ask your question. In the meantime, feel free to make use of the chat functionality. You can just post your question in the chat. I will collate and present the questions to Peter at the end of the webinar. If you haven't noticed as yet, the Shadowmatch calendar, the Events 2022 calendar can now be imported into your calendar. I'm going to share my screen and show you so that it's also part of the recording. If you go to shadowmatch.co.za and you go to Events 2022, you will see that you are now accessing the calendar. We've added a button, Import to My Calendar. All you need to do is just click on Import to My Calendar, and automatically the link to import into your calendar is copied to your clipboard. Nothing else that you need to do. You can see there's the link and it shows 63. I'm specifically alluding to this because I want to explain something a bit later. So you can now close and then go to your calendar. We make use of the Google Calendar in Gmail. In your left navigation panel, once you are in your calendar, you go to Other Calendars, you click on plus, and then you say From URL. This is where it allows you to take that URL that has now been copied to your clipboard, and you merely paste the URL and add to calendar. All the Shadowmatch events will now be added to the calendar. You can see it says calendar created. If I go back to my calendar, there you see today's event. And for all the events, you can merely click on the event and your Zoom link is available. This will be the same for the next week's events on Monday, on Wednesday. So all the events are available. You can go to the calendar, and if you use the menu, the three buttons, and go to settings, you can change the name of this calendar. So I can now go and I can decide that I'm not going to remember what this is. I'm going to name it Shadowmatch Events. And now it's changed the name of the calendar in my left navigation panel. If anything went wrong and you would like to go back, you can delete this calendar. You merely click on the cross and it will ask you, do you want to remove the calendar? You might not want all the events in your calendar. If you are only interested in the business application webinars, then you can go to the calendar, and on the drop-down list under events, you can choose that you would like to do the system accreditation and you don't want to do any of the coaching events. So you would like to attend the parenting webinars and you would like to attend all the system user accreditation webinars like the one we're doing today. So now it's only those two. If you now say import to my calendar, you will see that the link only now shows 9. So it's only going to import the 9 events that are related to the parenting webinars and the user accreditation. So if I go back to my calendar and I add from the URL, I paste, you can see it's now only going to paste those 9 events. So I won't see any of the coaching events in my calendar. The same is obviously true if you only want to see the coaching events in your calendar. I'm not sure how it works with your Outlook. That's something that you can just figure out. But the main thing that you need to realize is once you've clicked on import to my calendar, the URL is automatically copied to your clipboard and the steps are clearly described on this pop-up window. Let me stop sharing my screen. The last thing on my list before I hand to Peter to start with the presentation for today, remember that all the events are on your calendar on shadowmatch.co.za, and all the recordings for previous events, these exclude the coaching events. So I'm now referring to the business application webinars. All those recording links are available on the calendar. Let me share my screen once more. So if you on the calendar, let's go to February. You will see that this event has already taken place. The succession planning was on the 23rd of February. So if I click on that, there is the link to the recording of that specific event. So no need for you to try and find that link. We don't send the links as a blanket email to everyone. You can find the links of the recordings on your calendar. Great. I think that's all the administrative arrangements from my side. Peter, thank you very much. Over to you. Enjoy.
Thank you, Lizette, and welcome everybody. A few introductory comments. Charmaine will make a list of everybody who attended the session for today, and as a gift, she will send you a gift from our side, a micro book that I wrote on the issue of the fourth industrial revolution. It's a hobby of mine. It's part of my research work at Shadowmatch, my research responsibilities. I do a lot of work in terms of the future and where we are going in the world of industry and psychology and all the rest. So I wrote a micro book. I have started with this process of writing micro books because I have realized that people do not like to read macro books and pages that's been spent on gathering words. So I wrote a micro book on Industry 4.0, and just an early warning about the session for today. Please, everybody, don't shout at me about the information that I'm going to share with you. It's not me. I didn't do these things. I'm not guilty. I'm just the researcher to try to understand these things, and I want to share it with you. So if this frustrates you endlessly, please, I will try my best to answer all the questions as honestly as I can, but it's not me. So let's bear that in mind, and let's keep that as part of our approach towards each other. Let's share my screen, and I just want to do a few administrative things to get everything out of the way. Now, dear delegates and attendees, we're talking about career building and business development. Now, the one thing let me clarify a few things before we start. If a business doesn't provide a proper service to the clients, it's because their people are either badly recruited, they are unhappy in the business, they don't have the training, they are not competent, whatever it might be. Businesses are not buildings. Businesses are made up of people. And jobs and careers, businesses and industries are at risk because of stagnation. Now, this is quite an issue. I have been banking with a certain bank and for many years. And for at least 20 years, when I go to the ATM and I put my card into the machine, it says, do you want this machine to talk Afrikaans, English, Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana, whatever? And every time I pressed Afrikaans, nobody had the intelligence to say, but we have a feeling that we can automate this. So what we are going to talk about today is the fact that smart businesses stay on top of their game by keeping their people on top of their game. We cannot divorce these. We cannot split these two realities. Whether it's a church, it's a government institution that we can talk about for lengths, but let's rather save the time. Whether it's a business in what kind of an industry, if the business stagnates and they lose their clients and people move away from that entity, be it a university, a school, a college, a church, a bank, a manufacturing plant, whatever it might be, because the business has stagnated, it's because the people stagnated. So we'll get our minds around this. Now, with this in mind, let's have a look at the history. The first industrial revolution. Now, I didn't put a date to this. You can obviously Google the first industrial revolution and get a date, but it's in the late 18s. It was triggered by the steam engine and the fact that the steam engine that was built as a mechanical engine made us so strong that we could physically do 100,000 times more physically than prior to this invention. So the first industrial revolution was around building powerful steam engines that enabled the human capabilities to be much stronger than what we were prior to the steam engine. Now, this obviously was a revolution, and it was an industrial revolution, because this is the key point that you must remember. I've tried my best to simplify this to the basic understanding of what we are working with, because it's quite a complicated issue. What we are working with is a revolution, a discovery of something that made us as humans stronger. So what could we now do? We could now, instead of plowing with cattle and with animals, plow with a tractor. This made commercial farming is now possible. So suddenly it was almost within a few years that new possibilities became part of our world and part of our industries and our businesses. We had ships sailing the sea. We suddenly, we could at a high speed, obviously in inverted commas now compared to a high speed today, we could at a high speed transporting of goods and people now possible. So in a few years, in a very short space of time, if we look at the history of plowing and trying to sail across the oceans and to get boats and cargo across the sea, suddenly in a few years' time, we had the ability for commercial farming to produce food 100,000 times more than what we previously could produce with the same human input. So one person could work this tractor and it could do the job that 1,000 or more of these could have done in the time frames that we had available. So this was the first industrial revolution. Let me just remind you again, it was a revolution that made us as humans stronger, physically stronger, and suddenly we could do these massive operations and tasks. But then, dear delegates and participants in this webinar, what happened is the second industrial revolution came to the surface. And this is an advancement in factory workflow, such as mass production, electrification, and automation. So suddenly the fact that we have steam engines and very soon afterwards, the steam engines gave us the ability to generate electrical power, and then diesel engines came and all kinds of other combustion engines came, and it made us even more stronger, stronger than what we were, or more efficiently stronger than with the steam engines. And now what we've started to do is we figured out a way to make our factories and our manufacturing plants very smart, because we had electricity, we had diesel engines, we had petrol and paraffin and all those kind of combustion engines. On top of the diesel engines, we could generate electricity, distribute the electricity to our factories, and now high volume production is now possible. Instead of one person making a t-shirt with a needle and a string, and it takes 3 days for one person to put a t-shirt together, suddenly with a sewing machine, one person could stitch 100 t-shirts a day. And this created a new possibility for the business environment. It was a revolution that made us more. Remember, this revolution made us more. One person could now make 100 items in a day instead of making one item a day. The revolution had huge implications for prices, and mass production and mega industry came to the fore, and cars were made in automated fashion. The body parts were not handmade anymore, they were machine made. We pressed the body parts, and all the other things came, and mass production became a key driver of the industry. Remember, it made us as humans more. Suddenly there was work for people in factories, in manufacturing plants, etc., etc. But this then made space. Well, it didn't make space, but it was followed up by the third industrial revolution, when we started making computers. Now, this is longer ago than what you will expect. Please Google the date on the first computer, and there are a few dates, because what is the first computer? The first one was actually a mechanical one. It didn't work that well, but it was the first hit at it. This is also known as the digital revolution. It is characterized by the speed of automation and digitization through the use of electronics and computers, the invention of the internet and control systems. Let me explain. What we have done is we've built a computer. So computers could now run a payroll instead of 20 people who had to run the payroll on little cards that they wrote down. The pay for Peter was in this month, this, and he got this, and he paid tax for this and this and this, and they had pay cards, and I got a copy of that probably was handwritten. Suddenly the computer could run a payroll, and one person operated the computer, and it did the work for 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 people. And this created a new revolution, because smart, intelligent processing could now be done by computers. And obviously we said, yes, the program needs to be spec'd, and the programmers must write the program and get the things up and going. And there was a huge shortage of programmers, because everybody flocked to that industry because they were highly paid individuals. There were shortages of programmers, and it created a different job in a different environment. Then we started to connect these computers together in networks, and the internet started to develop. But an additional thing happened, and that is that we connected the computer to mechanical control systems, and the intelligence in the computer could then manage these mechanical control systems. Let me give you an example. A gate motor is an automated gate motor where you press a remote and the gate opens, it waits for 45 seconds and it closes again. And then it started to close down on the cars that was parked in the gate. So we had an eye, and the eye was watching if the car has moved, and nobody has to watch the gate anymore. So we used the intelligence that we programmed into the computers to build physical control systems in an automated manner that could gather information without the need for us to provide the information. That little eye in the gate, it can see the car. Well, it can see the car. And if the car stands in the gate, it tells the gate motor, hold it, don't close. When the car has moved out of the gate, nobody has to close the gate. That eye tells the computer in the gate motor, okay, close the gate. And then it closes the gate. So it automated, the automation went a bit further, and we started to build computers talking to computers and control systems that could work more independently to get things done that we used to do physically ourselves. Many years ago, we had somebody working at the gate. He opened the door, he opened the gate, said bye-bye to the people in the car, and then when the car's gone, he closed the gate physically and locked the gate. Now it's automated, so it's a control system. This was a revolution that made us cleverer. So we are now smarter and we are now more clever to manage physical things and even virtual things like payrolls and prices and the rest. Then everybody around the table, what happened is the fourth industrial revolution, Industry 4.0. We don't know when this started because everybody has got their own ideas. It's probably, in my mind, it's probably in the early 90s. Some of the researchers say, no, it started in the 80s. Some said no, in the 70s. Some said no, only 2002, 2003. So somewhere between the late 70s and 2003, the fourth industrial revolution became a reality. Now, I'm going to spend a minute or two on this slide and then show you, obviously, the outcomes that we have in mind for today. The fourth industrial revolution, according to Salesforce.com, and this is the best definition that I could get, and it's the most well-informed short description that I could get. It's the blurring of boundaries between the physical, the digital, and the biological worlds. Hold just there. So the lines between the physical world, the digital world, and the biological worlds became blurred. What does this mean? It means that we can now have a digitally controlled robot that can do an operation on the body of an individual. But let's put it just one step further. We can now have a digitally controlled intelligent system that controls a physical X-ray camera to identify the early development of cancer in the body of a human. Much earlier, probably 1,000 times earlier than what a human specialist eye can do. Let's look at the next sentence. It's a fusion of advances in artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? It's a computer system that learns and progressively integrates information to create unique outcomes that is unique according to the unique situation. And there are different levels of artificial intelligence. You get the entry level and then the very advanced deep learning, blah, blah, blah. We'll not go into that because that's a complicated topic on its own. We now run into a fusion of advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, and the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is where things start to talk to one another. They feed one another with information and they execute on the information that they get. Let me give you a very simple example. You buy a fridge that is IoT, the Internet of Things enabled. The fridge connects to the Wi-Fi in your house, and the fridge monitors the use of the family of everything that's been held in the fridge. So when the butter is finished, the fridge will scan and see the butter is finished. It places an order. The order is placed with one of the grocery suppliers in your environment, and as the order builds up, the fridge says, I'm now empty on this. The supplier delivers to your door whatever is empty in the fridge, and nobody has to do anything. The fridge has the intelligence. In other words, it's an artificial intelligence system. It's a robotic-driven system. It talks to the service provider via the Internet of Things. It feeds itself with the information that it's necessary. You don't have to do something as a human and tell the fridge that the milk is finished. The fridge knows that the milk is finished, and then it orders milk, and then Checkers or Pick n Pay or Woolworths or whoever it is knows that Peter and Lizette is running out of milk, and they deliver the milk. So everything is automated. I hear a doorbell and they say, sir, the milk is finished, here's the milk. 3D printing, genetic engineering, This is a huge topic where genetic engineering will integrate with artificial intelligence and microchips, electronic chips, quantum computing, and other technologies. It's blurring the boundaries between all these things. Now the sentence that you're not going to like. It is the revolution that makes us redundant for production. Smart industries do not need humans any longer to produce the goods they sell. The penny must drop in our minds, whether we like it or not. And I know the first question that we will get when Lizette opens the floor for question is, what will happen to everybody that will be replaced by computers? I don't know. I'm telling you now, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what will happen to them. But what I do know is that they have asked 100 of the biggest truck owning companies in the world. If you could replace all your trucks with autonomous driving trucks where there is no person that drives the truck, will you do it? They all said, yes, we are in the process of doing it as we speak. We won't stop it. We won't stop it. And let me tell you what drives this. People go on leave, they go on strike, they smash the buses, they drink and drive, they are not on time, they give a lift to friends and the friend's wife and the friend's children, and the companies are responsible for everything that might happen to those people. So the companies say, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this. I'll replace them with Intel inside. A computer can drive the truck. And it'll be much safer, it'll be much smoother, and it'll be much more cost efficient. So we are replacing, the world is replacing people with systems, first because they can, two, because it enhances efficiencies, and three, because we as the people give employers too much troubles. So they have resorted on other ways of doing it because they can. So this is what we must realize, that this is in the process of happening. Now, what is the problem? The problem is companies are falling behind. The companies where you consult and you provide a service as a specialist consultant, as somebody that understands shadow match, and we'll get into the detail in a minute or two, these companies are falling behind, and the divide between what is provided by other service providers that are smart is getting bigger, and companies go down. Working with outdated methods on all levels of the business, outdated computer systems, outdated integration systems, outdated training for their people, outdated control systems for their mechanical stuff. We can list it and carry on and carry on and carry on. It's outdated. The bank where I am, they have two systems: the accounting system for the check accounts and the accounting system for the credit cards. These two systems do not talk to one another. So if you update your change of address here, it doesn't tell the credit card division that it must update the system there. So now what I need to do now is I must update my check account or my savings account. It doesn't automatically update I must go through the entire process again to update my credit card account. So what will happen? The next bank will say, no, we'll make this smart. We'll have one click. You'll update everything with us. Where does it leave me? I move to a new bank. What happens to the bank that doesn't integrate their systems because their people have not been developed? They lose clients, and eventually they might just shut their doors, not knowing what is happening. This is the biggest challenge that we face in the world of business today, is that some of the business leaders are completely out of touch with what's happening in the world around them, and they don't even know what their competitors are doing, and obviously they're running out of time. We're trying to sell things for which there is no longer a market. Let me remind you of, the cameras that we had with the film, and we had the film in the camera, and then we wind it and we stick it, and we have to wind it up and then close, and there's a little bit light in it. When Kodak was told, we've reached the end of this, They were aggressive against the consultants who told them that. They said, we had a look at digital cameras. There's no future for digital cameras. Where are they now? That entire industry is gone. The same happened with Nokia, and you can please Google after this session, companies who went down because of outdated methods and product. You'll get a list of hundreds, big ones. It's shocking. Studying for a career that will no longer exist once you have completed your degree. There are many degrees, and I am frustrated with some of the universities that they keep on recruiting students for degrees that will no longer have a space in the world of business, whether we like it or not. It'll be replaced by automated systems, and those children will come out of university not able to find a job, accumulating the cost of business and becoming uncompetitive. We cannot compete against the smart people that automated their businesses, delegates. It's impossible. You cannot compete against them. They are faster, quicker, more cost efficient. They are cheaper. Customers turning away because they decide to move on. Now, so the core issue, a business stagnates because the people and the leaders in particular stagnate. There's no question about it. We cannot say, no, this has got nothing to do with the people in the business. A business, a church, an institution, a university, the government, the state, they stagnate because the people stagnate. So if this is the core issue, what is the solution? Now, obviously, if you would like to consult and take this a bit further, listen very carefully. Create a learning and development culture. This is the best investment that the company can make into their future success, is to create a culture of learning and development amongst the people that are employed. People must understand that if you come work for Shadow Match, it's a steep learning curve, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. We drive innovation as aggressively as we can. And this is how we feel and we believe we will survive. And we will take a leading edge. And this must happen to every business. Whatever business, unless you have a coffee shop around the corner and make coffee for your clients, and it's a small operation and you make a living out of it, that's fine, that's cool, let's go. But companies that employ people must create a culture of continuous learning and development. Develop all the people in the business. I experience sometimes that the senior business leaders think that they are above development and learning. And this is where it actually starts. The problem starts there. Enable employees to be teachers and learners simultaneously. We must teach one another and learn from one another as employees and part of an industry that we work for. Obviously, I'm convinced coaching is the answer. Let me tell you why. The information is available. We live in an information liberated world. You can Google whatever you want and the information is packaged in the way you want it. And if you don't like the package of the information, then just Google again and say, I want it packaged in this way. Somebody will provide it to you. The information is as credible as it can be, and you can check the credibility of the information against other sources. So it's not about information anymore. It's about coaching as a process to guide and direct people to a certain outcome. Internal and external coaches. Companies must have their internal coaches that help the younger generation and the upcoming, and sometimes the younger generation must be the coaches. Bear with me. The younger ones must be the coaches. In some instances, we need the young people to coach the older ones. And then all to be coached with purpose-driven content. The more employees think, the more they push for progress. Leaders must listen and co-develop with their employees to stay on top of their business and their industries. Our next module is module 5, the impact and management of retrenchments. Before we get there, obviously, we've got about 2 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks. And in the meantime, Suzanne will now show you how Shadow Match can help and enable companies to create a learning culture where people learn from one another. They coach with specific outcomes at their fingertips. With that, I'm going to stop my screen and hand over to Suzanne. Suzanne, thank you very much. You take control.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Good day, everyone. It's so great to have you with us again. Okay, so at least we found a solution at the end. Thank you, Peter, for that introduction. But now that we have the outline of the solution, let's go and take a more in-depth look to say, how are we actually going to do this in our organization, that we don't fall on the slide with the little snail where we become redundant and stay behind and still live in the past and all our competitors move on. So what we do at Shadow Match is we enable and support the environment to cultivate that culture of teaching and learning. And it starts from the individual and it flows out into the entire organization. So the Shadow Match system first teaches the individual about themselves. So who am I? How do I approach my environment? What are the intensities of my own habits? And then it enables an individual to develop specific habits in a focused way. Now, you can decide what is the reason behind the development and link that to the needs in your organization, but you can break it down to the practical steps of how do we actually develop this continuously and cultivate that culture of learning. So I can develop specific habits in a focused way. And then there's an entire platform specifically designated to this, to create that culture of teaching and learning within an organization. That's our coaching platform, to say, create coaches within your environment or put individuals on coaching programs for them to experience that continuous learning and development. So let's take this step by step. I'm going to show you the entire picture, and you can then obviously decide which of these functionalities and applications would suit the needs of your specific environment. But the bigger picture will show you, okay, what is at your disposal. So let's start with the personal development programs. So for short, we call them PDPs. Now, what these programs are is they're developed to create the learning in a specific focused habits. So if you're familiar with the Shadow Match worksheet, you know we measure specific habits, everything from responsiveness to taking ownership and propensity to change, and a whole variety of them. We'll take a look at them now. And each of these habits can then be developed by means of these programs. So a program focuses on a habit, it's broken up into phases, and in that phase, the individual needs to do a specific task. So it's outcomes-based experiential learning. It's not a classroom environment where I tell you the 5 steps of innovation is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go innovate. That's not how that actually becomes learning and something that is embedded within the individual. It needs to be a continuous process of repetition. But one of the biggest value adds of the PDP to your organization is that you make the individuals active participants in the development and basically the building of that business, because these individuals are going to be asked to go into the environment and identify possible areas of development, focus in that specific habit, and then actively think about this and put solutions on the table. So let's take a look what this actually looks like. So the personal development programs focusing on specific habits, you'll see on my screen is just a list of the specific focus areas. Just for a moment, imagine that you have everybody within your business focusing on innovation in a facilitated manner where there are specific phases and specific things to do. I don't need to go and think of this on my own when I still have a million things to do. It's broken down into a practical way where I can actually do this, and it's guiding me to develop this process. So if everybody within your organization from all of the different levels are asked to, in say, let's say phase 5 of the innovation PDP, go into their environment and identify possible areas of innovation within their direct space, they bring the solutions to the table. imagine if we actually embedded that process within the company. Imagine if we then saw the solutions that were suggested and we implemented them, making that part of our business. So this can be in any of the focus areas. So innovation, leadership, people positive, problem solving, any of the habits that would suit the needs of your environment. But the PDPs take you through the step facilitated. Now, this was actually a suggestion we gave to one of our clients. They came to us with a completely different request where there was a collapse of the processes within their company. So all of the processes, more the organizational processes, it just didn't work. And instead of spending thousands and thousands of dollars on an external consulting firm to say, please come and redesign the processes for us, the suggestion was to say, identify the following 3 PDPs: problem solving, simplification, and innovation, and put everybody in your business on this. And remember what Peter said there, everybody from the highest level to all of the levels below. And in that process, everybody went into the environment, actively thinking about problem solving, innovation, and simplification, put the suggestions on the table, and then they actually put it over into action to say, but let's implement what we found in those programs. So the PDPs are designed to do this, to take those individuals into the working environment, and it's tailored for the specific needs. So if I'm on a senior level, the problems I'm going to have to think about solving are going to be on a senior level, versus if I'm at a more junior level, it's in my scope of reference and I'm developed to actively embed this pattern in my behavior. So continuously I'm being developed, and with that, I'm actually building the business as I'm being built. So that's the first one, where we focus on specific habits. Now, the other focus areas within this whole scope of learning and teachings functionalities in Shadowmatch, you can then focus on other specific elements of the needs of your employees and the individuals in your environment. So the next one I want to show you is the career coaching. So with this, we're not focusing on specific habits. We're focusing on if we want to develop and build the career of the individual. How do we do that? Where do we start? And how do we make sure that the career building that we're suggesting for this individual is actually sustainable? It's something that would suit their needs. It's something that will take them to that next level within their career journey. And if we had to do this without a support system like this, this would take hours and hours and days to implement. But what did the Shadowmatch system do? It automated this process to make it easier and actually practical to implement. So the career coaching programs, they focus on the career development of the individual. Now, obviously you might say, but whoa, these individuals are in our company. We don't want them to move into other careers. We want to keep them in the company. But the program is intelligent like that to say, but what is the current career journey or the phase in their career journey that this individual is on? So the career coaching program can focus on specific needs. So let's say it is a future career, it's someone starting off with, obviously you can facilitate that. It can be the career process, it can be career changes, it can be anything to the end of the picture where someone is retiring and stepping away. But in your company, you then focus on, if we're in this specific career, how are we optimally guiding it that the individual is satisfied and there's a path within the business that makes sense for this individual. Now, this career coaching process is supported by the career report. It's a report specifically written for the individual based on their unique habits guiding the specific career development. So I'm just going to go to a personal portal that you can see what this report looks like practically. This is now a fictitious individual, and I'm focusing on her specific career report. The report is informed by Annie's habits. So this fictitious individual, whatever her unique combinations of habits are, that's the data that's pulled into this report. So it's not a blanket approach where we say all career development will look the same, and it might work for the one individual, but can not work for the next individual. It's thinking about how this can be sustainable for this individual. So the career report is written with specific topics broken down, and it's written in a style that engages and invites the individual to be an active participant of this process. In each section, there are videos that communicate that process. There's a lot of graphs. I'll show you a few of them, but the core of the report, and this is why I want to highlight this so important with our introduction presentation. It's written with the Industry 4.0 mindset to say, don't become redundant, don't get left behind. Make sure your career journey is taking you into the future where it can be sustainable. So there's a whole section designated to that. And then it drills down and focuses on that specific combination of things you need in your career. So the one example here is a broad focus of your career. Where should this fall? Now there's an entire video. If I click on it, you'll see and introduces this topic to say, okay, what are we talking about when we're talking about the broad focus of the career? Then it will give the unique description to that individual of what their broad career would be, together with their measurement to show, okay, where should I actually be? Oh, I clicked it twice. Let's just open it up. So you'll see for this individual, the broad focus combination, the unique balance between working with people, working with objects and tasks, and working with ideas is shown on the graph. And the entire report at the top will explain this to it, say practically how are you going to implement this and make this part of your career. So I don't have time to go through all of the aspects of the report, but you'll see it's focusing on the practical elements of the career. So for a moment, imagine that this is a continuous process within your business to say, I'm building the careers of my employees. They're not just a number. I'm building the career, and as their career is being built, they're building the business with us. So we're building into the future. We're building together into the where we want to go. So if I make this part of my processes, it's as easy as all I need to do is make sure we get that career coaching as part of our teaching and learning scope in our business. So let's just scroll down. I just want to show you something else at the bottom of this report. So remember what I said at the start, it's written for this specific individual in mind. So it's not going to give the same advice to me as to another individual. At the bottom, it, for instance, gives you important career tips for you to keep in mind. Practically, make sure that simplification is a daily thing that's part of your work. Make sure you have the ability to take control of situations. And it might guide me away from certain habits to say, make sure the focus isn't on this. So if I'm informed about this and the direct individuals working with me, my manager that's helping me to build this career, knows, but this is something that we should take into the future for my career. This is something we should try to step away of. We can practically make that part of our journey, and we have the information. It's already written in that career report. Now, this report, together with the personal feedback report, is then facilitated in the career coaching program. So the program is a complete facilitated program that takes you through the various phases to say, take this step by step to say, how are we taking this individual to the next step in their career journey? Be it changing a career, be it developing a current career within a business to make sure it's optimal and sustainable, but everything is informed and written for that unique individual in mind. Now that's building the careers of individuals within a business. How else can the system support this culture of learning and teaching within the business? What about employees that actually embark on further studies? How are we making sure that the further studies are used to help grow the business? Now for this, there's once again an entire coaching program focused on this. It's the Study Methods Coaching Program. So the program helps that individual to focus on their specific study method needs, to say, get a study method that's sustainable with your unique habits, that you make sure you're not wasting your time. So the Study Methods Coaching Program takes the individual through step-by-step to say, how are we going to make sure you make your outcomes, you reach the outcomes and the tasks you wanted to do within your study journey. So it's taking us through specific focus areas, and this is once again facilitated by a report that is completely customized to the individual. The report I'm mentioning here is the study report. So I'm going back to my personal portal, and you'll see on my portal, I can find my study report in my list of reports. And this report is once again specific topics saying, okay, how are we thinking about studying? How are we thinking about, should it be long or short sprints? Should it be with groups? Should it be individually? How are we focusing on specific projects? But the main part of this report is my unique optimal study method. This is once again informed by my unique habits to say, how do I approach studying that I make sure it actually works for me? So the coaching process will facilitate this with me to make sure I can embed this in my journey. But the study report is the report that also informs this process, and we can get the report for any of our employees if we have access to the Shadow Match system. So that's where individuals are embarking on studying. So by helping them to study, we're actually cultivating that learning and teaching culture within the business. Now, the last focus area within our coaching spectrum is fulfillment coaching. So this is if the need is general development in life. So it's not specifically focused on studies, maybe not specifically on my career. We haven't identified a specific habit we need to develop, as in with the PDPs. We generally need to help that individual to develop fulfillment within their life. So general development and the fulfillment program, once again, facilitates this so seamlessly. So if we jump to the fulfillment outline, you'll see it's habit reconstruction coaching to help that individual address their fulfillment needs. So once again, I'm helping that individual to teach, to learn, to develop, and my coach is the teacher. The individual that teaches me this fulfillment is the teacher. So if my coach is also employing my company, the coach is also being developed by this process. But for now, let's focus on the individual being developed. What's going to happen? What are going to be the different focus areas? So it takes me through the whole journey to say, understanding myself, understanding my own habits, and understanding the specific needs I have for fulfillment in my life. Practically, how do we do this? Now, this program the timeline can stretch anything up to 5 years, if that is the need. There's enough content on the system that you can actually do this process for 5 years. But you can make the timeline as is needed by that specific individual. 3 months, 2 months, 3 years, depending on the need. But what is amazing about the system is the content is developed for the entire journey of development. Now, what we experienced beforehand is, let's say we wanted to cultivate this culture of learning and teaching within a company, but we didn't know, okay, where do we start? Where are the resources that can help facilitate this process? And imagine if we just say to employees, okay, we're going to embark on fulfillment coaching. Where do we start? How do we make sure the processes and the things and the discussions we have are actually taking us into a meaningful direction? That is what the coaching platform was developed for. We researched and developed the content of this very, very immaculately to say the development should actually happen. So if you want to make coaches within your environment, you want to create that culture of coaching. It's not going to take a million different individuals to help facilitate this process, because the content is already developed. The content is there and it's facilitated seamlessly on the coaching platform. Let's just quickly take a look at this coaching platform that you can see. Okay, what was this platform I'm referring to? I'm now going to log in as a coach. So I'm a teacher. I'm the teacher within the environment. I'm helping individuals to embark on this journey. Let me just log in. And I then have access to all of the resources that I need. So a specific program, let's say the study method coaching, if I'm helping an individual with this, so let's say this individual there, Alice Adams, I'm embarking on this journey of study method coaching with her. She's going to complete the entire program. Then I'm going to have access to all of the reports I need for this. So that study report we looked at a bit earlier, I have access to that to say, okay, what is the content of that? That report together with a complete plan, a complete program of what do we do in phase 1 all the way up until phase 7 to help this individual to learn this specific thing we want to achieve is at the touch of a fingertip. I don't have to plan anything. I don't have to write anything down or go and research this thing. It's already done. I can simply click and I know, okay, in my first meeting, I'm going to do this with the individual. In the second meeting, we're going to do this. So the program facilitates me. And talking about that culture of learning, there's an entire training base for these coaches. So if you want to learn or teach individuals to be coaches within your business, there's an entire library of how to be an effective coach using these materials. So ladies and gentlemen, let's just quickly summarize this to say, how do we actually facilitate this process of teaching, learning, development within the business? Shadow Match is built with that exactly in mind, to say help individuals to learn about themselves. If they need to develop specific habits, help them to focus on that specific habit. There's an entire program that facilitates that. If you want to develop their careers, there's an entire program that facilitates that. If you want to help them to be effective studiers, effective students, there's an entire program that facilitates that. If you want to help them with general fulfillment development in their life, there's an entire program that facilitates that. You would then fit these pieces of the puzzle to your needs to say, but which of these programs do we embark on when? It values the coach and the individual embarking on the coaching program to the same extent. So both are developed, and we cultivate that culture of learning and teaching within the environment. We create the teachers as well as the individuals that are going to be taught within the environment. You can then decide, does it make sense to go with internal coaches, or would you request external coaches for this, depending on your needs? Now you can find the information about this, everything on shadowmatchcoaching.com. There you'll find everything, all these programs that I showed you, how they work, videos, everything you wanted to do, the things I showed so quickly, if you're interested in this. Thanks, Lizette. That's all from my side. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, both Suzanne and Peter, for very insightful presentations. I'm sure everybody would like to listen to this again. It was loaded with a lot of information. So the recording will be available on the calendar later today, by latest tomorrow morning. So if you want to listen to this again or share it with someone, please go and find the recording on your calendar, so that you can follow the flow of the presentation and access the content again. There were some questions and some comments, but before I go to that, I would like to hand to Peter, and then I will handle some of that, and then we will open the floor for questions. Those of you that need to run, you're welcome to run. We will obviously now go into some questions and sharing some information with regards to questions that I've received privately as well. Peter, first to you.
Alyssa, just a comment for everybody before they run. Obviously, the Shadow Match system is extremely smart and sophisticated. So if a big company, for instance, say to us, but we would like to start building a culture of learning and development, we as a team, and you included, we will help you. We can do this in a matter of a week. If the leadership team works with us, we can implement the entire system in a matter of a week. So it's a fully automated process, and as Suzanne rightly and very smartly said, everything is there. Thanks, Lizette. Just on the comment on the micro book for those with emails that we don't have.
Great, thanks. Yes, let's start with that. So we will send the microbook to everybody attending today. I think we've got all the emails. If you do not get the book, please let us know. Just email Charmaine at Shadowmatch or whoever, coaching@shadowmatch.com, info@shadowmatch.co.za, whichever email address you can find, let us know that you didn't get the book and we'll send you the book. There was a question with regards to what Suzanne said in terms of the learning in an organization. So if I want to sort out my processes in the organization, I'll put everybody on problem solving. And Suzanne mentioned 3 examples. I just need to also comment, dear participants, remember those 3: problem solving, innovation, and I think propensity to change was the third one. I can't remember, but the ones that Suzanne mentioned are not the only PDPs that you can implement in a company. It will obviously depend on the need of the company. So if it's a customer service environment, you might want everybody in that customer service or contact center to do the people positive PDP. If your processes are very complex, you might want to do the to simplify PDP. Or if you really want to implement change in an organization, it might be propensity to change, to put everybody in the organization on propensity to change so that you can facilitate change. So it's not just the 3 PDPs mentioned, it will obviously depend on the need of the organization. Then there was a question about how do I know which PDP my client should do? Now, normally the system would, if somebody is not compared to a benchmark in the big engine of Shadow Match, if it's just the individual result, it will always be recommended that the individual embarks on the softest or the lowest habit. We call it the softest habit. The system will always recommend the softest habit. Now, that might not be necessary or the right PDP in the current environment of your client. So when you sit with your client and you look at your client's shadow match results, it will obviously be a consultation process and see, but what is currently frustrating you in your job? What are you struggling with? And then you'll decide which PDP is the best one to embark on round one. Once you've done frustration handling as an example, you might then embark on problem solving as the next PDP, or to simplify, whatever is needed for the client to succeed in his or her job. Now, obviously, dear participants, if a company uses shadow match, and I'm now stepping out of the coaching into the shadow match engine, companies will create benchmarks of top performers doing a specific job. Then the system compares an individual to the benchmark of the top performers. And then the PDP that is recommended is not the lowest habit of the individual, but where the individual differs most from the benchmark. So where the habit of the individual is so different from that of the benchmark, that will then be recommended as the PDP. So the system takes a different approach depending on how you work with the results. I think that was mostly. I'm going to end the recording and then we'll stay on to take questions. I just want to try and keep it to an hour. We thank you for attending. Don't run. Let me end the recording and then I'll open the floor for live questions.